Good morning, dear students. I am Sanjay Goyal, Assistant Professor of English, Department of English, Jain Vishwa Bharati University. As you have taken MA in English, in your program the first paper is the aspects of language. This is the paper which is related with the items of language, mostly the topics of language and linguistics. And this is the paper in which we talk about the various elements of grammar also. So today we are going to discuss about a very important topic that is called verb. Verb is a very important topic of English grammar. In fact, you are aware that without verb, no sentence in English can be made. It is so important topic that in every sentence we have got a verb. So now you can very easily understand that the verb is a very important topic for all of us, and you will be surprised to know that most of the mistakes are made of verbs by the Indian students particularly. So it is, as a matter of fact, a general topic, number one. Number two, it is a particular topic for B people because of the syllabus, because this topic is included in our syllabus also. So now actually we would like to take this topic in elaborate manner, and we will discuss all the points related with the verb. Number one, the verb, as you are all aware, is a very important part. Is a very important part of English language. Number two is a nucleus of a sentence. So these two things are very important while discussing about the verb. Number one, verb is a very important aspect of English language. Number two, it is a nucleus of a sentence. Now, we have to understand how we can use a verb. How we can use a verb. For that, we have to see these examples. Number one, she laughs. Number two, she is laughing. Number three, she has been laughing. Number four, she may have been laughing. Dear students, you will find in these four examples, we have used verbs. And what are the verbs? Now I will underline the verbs, then you will have a clear picture about the verbs. Now you can very easily understand that we have used verbs, and how many verbs we have used in these four sentences, that is also quite clear. In sentence number one, that is she laughs. Laughs is a verb. It means we have used a verb in the sentence number one, and we have used only one verb. Whereas in the sentence number two, that is she is laughing, we have used two verbs, is and laughing. It means that we have used two verbs in the sentence number two. Similarly, if we take the sentence number third, she has been laughing, here we have used three verbs, has, been and laughing. So, the number of the verb is 3 here. In the same way, in the sentence number 4, we have used 4 verbs. Number 1, may, second, have, third, been, fourth, laughing. It means that we have used 4 verbs in the sentence number 4. It will be very surprising for you to note that in English grammar, you have to use a verb. In order to make a sentence in English grammar, you have to use a verb. There is no other way to go. You can't omit a verb. You have to use a verb. It is a need. But the most important thing is this, that you can use one verb at a time. You can use 2 verbs at a time. You can use 3 verbs at a time. You can use 4 verbs at a time. But minimally, you can use 1 verb, and maximally, you can use 4 verbs. It means that in a sentence, particularly in a clause, you can use 1 verb at a time, and maximally, you can use 4 verbs at a time. So now this point should be very clear to you that verb is a very important and essential part of English grammar, particularly when we are making the sentences, and minimally we can use, you can take it down, even in fact I will write it. So this is a very important aspect, what we have just discussed, that in English sentences you can use 1 verb minimum and 2 verbs maximally. I think this topic and the beginning of the verb should be very clear to your minds now. Now we would like to discuss about the various uses of verbs, how the verbs can be used, in which situations we can use them, and how we can avoid making mistakes, particularly when we are using them. So now we are going to discuss the verbs through various angles. We are going to take some important angles for you, and the verbs will become automatically clear to you. And then we will understand all the angles through examples. So let us start the verbs with some angles actually. Now we will discuss the angle number 1. As you are looking at the blackboard, you will find that there are 2 kinds of verbs. There are 2 kinds of verbs according to angle number 1. According to angle number 1, there are 2 kinds of verbs. Number 1, finite verbs. Number 2, non-finite verbs. Now I know there will be a question in your minds as to what finite verbs are, what non-finite verbs are. At your level, you need to know what finite verbs are and what non-finite verbs are. Now we will understand the finite and non-finite verbs in detail. Finite verbs are the verbs that can be used in present and in past also. Non-finite verbs can't be used in present and in past. They are tenseless verbs. Now the point will become very clear to you. What are the finite verbs? Finite verbs are those which can be used in present and in past tense. It means these verbs can be used in present tense and in past tense also. For example, you can see go. He goes. Now this is a verb. This is a verb. And this is a verb. This is a verb in present and it is finite verb. It can be changed into past also. You can say he went. Now this is also a verb. This is also a past verb and this is also a finite verb. Why? Because this verb can be changed into present and this present verb can be changed into past. This is what is called finite verb. We can understand this with a different example also. For example, he is a teacher. He is a teacher. Now, you can say he was a teacher. In the first example you will find this is a verb, this is a present and finite also. Why is it a finite? Because we can change this into past. That is why this is a verb, past verb and finite verb also at the same time. Now I think the concept of finite verb will be very clear to your minds. What is a finite verb? It is a verb that can be used in present and at the same time it can be used in past. It means that the tense of a verb can be changed very easily. That is why it is called a finite verb. But in non-finite verbs, it is not possible because they are the tenseless verbs. They are the tenseless verbs. Actually, we will understand the non-finite verbs in detail in the angle number 3rd. Then the topic of non-finite verbs will also be very clear to you. Now, I think the angle number 1 will be very clear to your minds because the angle number 1 talks about two kinds of verbs. Number 1, finite verb. Number 2, non-finite verbs. Finite verbs which can be changed from present to past and past to present are called finite verbs. But non-finite verbs can't be changed from present to past or past to present because they do not have the tense and therefore they are called tenseless verbs. Hopefully the topic will be clear to your minds. Now let us switch over to the angle number 2nd. This was the angle number 1. Angle number 2nd, as you are aware, we have discussed the angle number 1 already. Now we are coming to angle number 2nd that is more comprehensive than the angle number 2. This angle number 2 also will give you a very clear picture of the verbs and you will be able to understand the verbs in a better way and you will be able to use the verbs in a better way. Now, we will try to understand what are the special verbs and what are the ordinary verbs. First of all, let me clear the thing that according to angle number 2, there are two kinds of verbs. There are two kinds of verbs. Now, the special verbs. What are the special verbs? Special verbs, according to Michael Best, are the friends of not. Michael Best is a very senior grammarian of English from University of Oxford, and he says that these special verbs are the friends of not, whereas ordinary verbs are not the friends of not. So these special verbs actually are 24 in number. They are 24 in number. Why they are special verbs? Because these verbs can be used with not. Now we will have to see them. We will write them. Now you will find that these verbs are 24 in number. They are the friends of not. Why they are friends of not? We have clarified the aspect that they can be used with not. If you have to use or if you want to use not in your sentence, it means if you want to make your sentence negative, then you have to use these 24 verbs. You have to use these 24 verbs because you don't have any other choice to use other verbs. These are so special in English grammar. That is why we call them special verbs. They are do, does, is, am, are, has, have, did, was, were, had, will, would, shall, should, may, might, can, could, dare, need, used, ought, must. These are 24 in number. Now, apart from all these verbs, you will see are ordinary verbs. For example, go, come, need, sleep, etc. All other verbs are the verbs which are ordinary. Why they are ordinary? Because you can't use not along with these verbs. That is why these verbs are ordinary verbs. These verbs are called ordinary verbs. Now, the difference of the special verbs and the ordinary verbs will be very clear to your minds, because now we have understood what are the ordinary verbs and what are the special verbs. One thing also that we have to understand, because along with these verbs we can use not. That is why these verbs are called anomalous finites. These verbs are called anomalous finites because along with these verbs we can use not also. Now the point will be very clear to you that what are the special verbs, what are the ordinary verbs, and what is the difference exactly between both of them. Now we will try to understand the angle number third, that is very important and that is bit comprehensive also at the same time, because it has got some important concepts related to non-finite verbs, as I discussed in the angle number 1 also. You are aware that angle number 1 is related with finite and non-finite verbs. Now once again we are going to talk about finite and non-finite verbs in angle number third. Let us switch over on angle number third. As you are aware, in the angle number third also, there are two kinds of verbs. There are two kinds of verbs in angle number third also. Once again, and these two kinds of verbs are called as finite verbs and non-finite verbs. You are aware very well that in angle number 1 we talked about the finite verbs and non-finite verbs. What is a finite verb? A finite verb is a verb which can be changed from present to past and past to present is called a finite verb. What is a finite verb? A finite verb can be changed from present to past and past to present. It means the tense of the verb can be changed. There is a possibility of changing the tense, and that is why it is called a finite verb. You should remember, my dear friends, that the difference is very complicated. Sometimes it becomes difficult to you to understand what exactly a finite and non-finite verb are. So, finite verb is a verb where you can change the present into past and past into present. Now let us come on non-finite verbs. Non-finite verbs, you can't change the tense of the verb. So, the tense of the verb can't be changed. Can't be changed. Now the point will be very clear to you that in finite verb you can change the tense, whereas in non-finite verb you can't change the tense. That is the difference. In order to understand the difference between finite verbs and non-finite verbs, we would like to take a very important example from English grammar. In order to understand the difference between finite and non-finite verbs, we are taking a very important example of a verb that is called be. The verb be has got 8 forms. It has got 8 forms. This is the longest verb of English grammar, my dear friends, and that is why it is called the most irregular verb of English. It is called a most irregular verb of English because it has got 8 forms and we do not know. We have to calculate, we have to analysis. Only then we can use a particular and the accurate form of be. Now let us see. It has got is, am, and are in present, was and were in past, be, being, and been. These are non-finite verbs. These are non-finite verbs. Now you will see that be has got 8 forms. Be verb has got 8 forms, and in that is, am, are, present, was, were, past, both of them is, am, are, and was, were, my dear friends, you will see both of them are finite verbs. Both of them are finite verbs. Why? Because is can be substituted by was, and was can be substituted by is. That is why they are finite verbs. That is why they are finite verbs. So now you will see is, am, are present finites, was, were past finites, and be, being, been, they are non-finites. They are non-finites. Why they are non-finites? Because you can't change the tense of these verbs. You can't change the tense of these verbs. That is why they are called non-finite verbs. You must have seen some examples like she may be singing a song. She may be singing a song. Now in this example, may is a finite verb because you can change may into might. May was a present finite, might is a past finite. That is the only difference. But you will find that you can't change be. You can't change be because be will be SH. There won't be any change into be. That is why be is a non-finite verb. Be is a non-finite verb. We would like to discuss these verbs in very detail, and in fact these are the non-finite verbs, and the non-finite verbs are basically 3. Non-finite verbs are basically 3. You see, they are be, being, and been. They are be, being, and been. So, as a matter of fact, the verb of finite verbs we have discussed. Now non-finite verbs, which are particularly 3. But it is not the case that there are only 3. They can be many, and we can use them in a different ways also. We can use them in a different ways also. So in order to understand the full and comprehensive picture, we would like to discuss all these elements of non-finite verbs in detail. In detail, we would like to discuss. So now, so far, we have discussed angle number 1 and angle number 2 and half of the angle number 3. In these angles, in angle number 1, we have discussed that there are 2 kinds of verbs, finite verbs and non-finite verbs. Finite verbs are those which can be changed from present to past and past to present. In angle number 2, we try to discuss about the special verbs and ordinary verbs. Special verbs are called the friends of not because we can use not along with them. Whereas the ordinary verbs are those where we can't use not. Therefore, there are only 24 verbs where not can be used. And there are many verbs where we can't use not. And where we can't use not, those verbs are called ordinary verbs. Similarly, my dear friends, we discussed about the angle number 3, and angle number 3 has got the finite and non-finite verbs once again. Finite verb which can be changed from present to past and past to present, and non-finite we are discussing, and we will like to discuss the more detailed form of non-finite verbs in the next lecture. Thank you very much, my dear friends.